I just spent 20 minutes recording this video. I edited it and put it all together and went to upload it on YouTube, and then I realized that I had left my microphone off. Oh well, let's try this again. Round 2. Dolphins fans, thanks for checking out the channel again. I apologize, I am sick, and obviously I sound weird, and clearly my mind is not right. So, I'm trying to go through this again and make this video for a second time. This time, my microphone is on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this in this video alone, and then I'm going to let it go because it really doesn't deserve that much attention. But I will explain it, and I'll talk to you guys about it, and then at the end I'll give my opinion on it and my thoughts. Deshon Elliott played for us last year. He was our safety opposite of Javon Holland, and we let him go, and he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, he was a pretty good safety the year before he played for us. When he played for us, he didn't really have that great of a year. Let's look at this real quick. He's definitely playing better in Pittsburgh, but on our team, he kind of was a liability at safety, and here's kind of some of the stats as to why. Where are they? I had them here in my notes, and now I can't find them. He had allowed, in that last season alone, he allowed 5 touchdowns, and those are directly responsible to him, which means they were players that he was responsible for covering. He allowed 5 touchdowns, 18.6 yards per completion against him, and he missed 9 tackles as a member of the Dolphins. That's not a good year. Missing 9 tackles as a safety. You're the last line of defense in the defense, and you're supposed to make those tackles that other people miss. You're not supposed to be the one missing tackles. If you're a safety and you miss tackles, that's like being a center in the NBA and being 5 foot 5 inches tall. It's just not going to work out for you. Pardon me. So with that said, he was released and allowed to sign a contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's playing better this year, and that lends some questions as to the fact of, well, maybe he was struggling with the system that Vic Fangio had going for the Dolphins on defense last year, and that's an entire possibility. I'm not going to get into that too much, but he was largely a liability on our defense last year, and I just wanted to say that before I get into this, and keep that in mind as we go through this. He does have a kind of a ball hawk attitude where he likes to hit hard, and that's a good thing as a safety, but like I said, wasn't a very good player for us last year. Now, yesterday on a podcast called The Punchline, that's Marion Humphrey's podcast. I don't know if you know who that is. He played for the Baltimore Ravens, and they were talking with Deshon Elliott on that podcast about the Week 11 matchup that they have against between the Steelers and the Ravens. Now, they were talking about that game, and Deshon Elliott was talking about how he was excited to play in it, and he said, I haven't been able to play against Baltimore the way I wanted to because last year I played on a team that was soft AF. And then immediately he said, oh my gosh, I can't put that on there. That was pretty soft. There were some guys that were tough, but for the majority of the team, there was not mentally tough individuals. And to be on that team with a full team of mentally tough guys to go against another mentally tough team, like AFC North Ball, it's going to be fun. So, in this conversation, he was kind of talking about how he was excited to play Ravens and Steelers in AFC North matchup. And yes, the Steelers and Ravens are very, very tough teams. So I wasn't, initially I looked at that and I was like, yeah, well, whatever. He said something he probably shouldn't have said, but I wasn't looking too deeply into it. Now, when you combine that with what else he said, that's when I start to look at it a little differently. He said, let's see, let me find it again. Sorry, guys. He said about last year, he said, we were a really good team, and then the injury bug hit us. We played the Titans, he said, and then when we played Tennessee and lost to Tennessee, you can tell that the heart and soul for that team just disappeared. He said guys started going out more, partying, and started going to the club throughout the week. Guys started showing up to meetings late, and you could just tell that the Miami culture is the reason why the Dolphins will never be good. Miami will never be a good football team, and they will never be good because of the Miami culture. They only have great players. Pardon me. With that, combined with what he said before, I personally took it a little differently, and I think that the players will too, or have. We're never going to know the answer to that officially, but like I said, with the way he played last year, it is fair to say maybe he wasn't, used properly in our defense with Vic Fangio. More than fair to say, especially considering how he's playing well this year and played well the years before. However, Mike McDaniel did make a comment about it. They asked him in his interview today, on his press conference, Mike McDaniel's about this, and he said, this was his reply, and good on Mike McDaniel for replying. He acknowledged it, but he didn't give it any credibility. He said, I am supremely only concerned with the 2024 Dolphins. Every team's ability to be mentally tough in the NFL season is definitely tried. And I think, case in point, some of the stuff that we've been going through this season and how our team played through a tough fought game the last 3 weeks and ended up finding a way to win this past week. And I think that's not the easiest thing to do, and I'm just worried about this year's team. And then he said this, and it kind of made me smile because it was obviously very, very sarcastic. And he said, and yeah, it's cool. You said that on a podcast. Cool podcast. And I kind of thought that was nice, that he's kind of, being a little snide there, firing back a tiny bit, in a nice way, the way you would expect a coach to do in a press conference. So with that, he didn't really give much credibility to it. Tua talked about it a tiny bit when they asked Tua about it in his press conference. Tua just replied, and he said, yeah, he's a player, and he can say what he wants. He's entitled to say what he thinks, and that's that. And that's all Tua said about it. Now, I think that if you take this into context and you think, well, Mike McDaniel and Tua didn't seem bothered by it, they were bothered by it. I guarantee it. What they say in a press conference compared to what they say in a private meeting or a team meeting, which is going to be something that's going to be discussed amongst the team. I hope they use this as motivation. I hope Mike McDaniel holds his phone up and plays that entire interview for his players to hear. I hope that's used as a motivational tool, because what a great tool that is. Mike McDaniel should be a little more insulted, I think, by it, just because of the fact that he's the head coach of the team, and toughness, and especially mental toughness and fortitude, should be something that's associated with your head coach. I will say this. The team this year is a different team than last year. I will say that I think as far as mental fortitude and mental toughness and physical toughness, as far as those three things are concerned, the Miami Dolphins this year are not the same team as last year. They are much tougher, much more mentally tough. Think of it this way. They're used to things just kind of going right, especially in the beginning of the season all the way through to week 10, week 11. Pardon me. Ooh, this sickness is killing me. We're used to things going right, and there hasn't been much, struggle. And when we have gotten a few games lost in a row, we kind of just fold. And the last 2 years, that's what's happened. We folded down at the end of the season and just kind of lost it. This year's been different. It started as a struggle, and we've had these things that have kind of knocked us down and tried to make us give up. And this team is not giving up. I'm seeing a different Dolphins in this season. Yeah, the wins aren't there yet, but I am proud of the way this team's played, and with the mental toughness that they've shown on the field, and with dealing with all these things that have been going on and off the field, especially these last 3 or 4 weeks where they've come out and they've been playing super hard. No one can argue that. For example, I have a lot of Bills fans who subscribe to this channel. Bills fans, comment. Tell me what you think about this, what I'm about to say, and tell me if you agree or disagree. The Dolphins this year, when they played you this last 2 weeks ago, that game, would you say that was a weak team? Would you say that was a soft AF team? Because I think if you're honest with yourself, you wouldn't say that, because that was a hard-fought game. The Bills had to earn that game. That wasn't something they just jumped out on us early and just took it to us. I think that the Dolphins have learned some things this season, and I think that it's starting to show. I think that in that Bills game especially, I think Bills fans can admit that that was not the same Dolphins team that they've been seeing play against them, especially the last 2 years. They lost the game, yeah. The Dolphins lost that game. But it's not the same team. They played that game very, very hard. And the last few games, really, they've played extremely tough. They've played some good opponents. So tell me what you think there, Bills fans, and tell me if you agree with that statement or not. Like I said, it's no shame to the Bills. I mean, the Bills are obviously the better team. They won that game fair and square. But I don't think that you could look at that game and say the Dolphins were weak or soft AF. So, just something to think about there. I think this year is different in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying they're going to make it to the playoffs and they're going to win every game for the rest of the season. But I will say the mental toughness is starting to become part of this team. Has it taken a while? Yeah. But even with the record we had last year at this point in the season, I was disappointed in a lot of ways. Mainly with the softness of the team in certain things, certain ways. But I don't think that's the same this year. And I think for someone such as Deshon Elliott to come out and say that on a podcast and just be kind of so nonchalant, even though he did try to walk it back immediately, it was largely unfounded and kind of inappropriate. And like I said, people can say what they want, and I think that needs to be, that is true. Freedom of speech. You can say what you want to say, but at the same time, I think Miami really needs to use that as motivation to not be that way, to not be soft AF. And just so everybody knows, one of the weak spots of our defense last year was Deshon Elliott. If you don't believe me, go look at the stats. Watch a couple games. Doesn't matter which game you watch. Watch a game where he played. I think he missed 2 games last year. I think. That's it. But out of our 3 safeties, he was our weak link, for sure. And was that the culture? Was that the fact that he was going out and partying? At that point, if he was partying and hanging out with everybody else doing the same thing, my question is why would you talk about it like you were the only one not doing it? Why would you talk about this team like you were not part of the problem? Because it's very clear through the stats and gameplay last year that you were part of the problem, Deshon Elliott. So that's my only tiff coming back at Mr. Elliott, is that he was obviously one of the weaker links on the team. He was the softest safety on our team, for sure. So I see that, and I think that it's not right for him to do that, but he did, so we move on. I think it needs to be used as motivation. So Mike McDaniel, bring that about, please. Let's see, what else? We have another tough game. Well, not really. I mean, it's a tough game. Every game's a tough game, especially when you're on this step program of taking it one game at a time. They have to play the Raiders this week, and I think that this should be the motivation for them to absolutely blow the Raiders out of the water. I mean, if I was a Dolphins player, I would be livid about this. If I was Mike McDaniel, I would say if we fight through this and we keep doing what we're doing right now, there's a good chance we could end up in the playoffs. And if we end up in the playoffs, we could end up playing against Mr. Elliott and his Steelers. And right now it's all about motivation, and it's all about mental toughness, and it's about not being soft AF. So Mike McDaniel and the rest of the coaching staff needs to make sure to use this as severe motivation for our team. That's pretty much all I had really to say about all of that. The other small little thing about talking about how players were going out and partying and stuff, and then later on in the interview he mentioned how players never really hung out with each other or did anything outside of football. And that's definitely not the same as it is this year, because this year the players are constantly hanging out together, get together. They're doing things outside of work. They're always together. You always see them two or three at least together at a time. Um, you see Calais Campbell and Tyreek Hill and a bunch of other players always driving to practice together, always hanging out, always doing things. Odell Beckham Jr. is always hanging out with Tua, hanging out with Jalen Waddle. These things are a little more common this year, so I am happy to see that. But at the same time, if that was part of last year where that wasn't happening, then how does Deshon Elliott know that players were going and doing a bunch of stuff outside of football? I just don't understand how he would know that if he wasn't doing anything with the teammates. It just seems a little fishy. So it seems like he was saying some of this kind of just seemed like he just wanted to talk a little bit of smack. And if that's the case, it's kind of weird. But whatever, do you, bro. Enjoy the Steelers. They do have a better record than us right now, I guess. So mark it a win for him or something. Anyway, that's all I got today. I just wanted to cover that and talk about it. Didn't want, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of overreactions, and I'm sure TD Finn's will talk about how the Dolphins are soft and they're one of the softest teams in the NFL and blah, blah, blah. Might have been. I don't think they are this year. Watching these games and watching the progression of this team throughout this year, I don't think anybody could say that they're soft AF anymore. At least not right now. Who's to know what happens at the end of the season here? We'll see. But right now, we have the Raiders coming up. And on Friday, I'll be putting out as soon as I have that last injury report on Friday, I have my notes right here. I'll be putting out the preview video for the Raiders at Dolphins. And then on Sunday evening after the game, I'll have my recap. And that's what I got coming out for you guys. So thanks for watching. If you guys could, give a like and subscribe. Make sure you tell people about the channel. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Fins up.